Hello everyone.
Welcome to a quick and direct approach to painting a simple iris in watercolor. This is an excerpt from my full 1 hour and 45-minute video tutorial on plein air painting with irises. If you'd like to expand your lesson today and would like to continue learning with me, this is what you can expect with the full video.
I'm going to be showing you everything that's in my plein air kit. I'm going to also be taking you through steps for how to sketch out your iris, what shapes to look for, what essential geometric simple forms there are within that complex flower shape that we know and love as the iris. Finally, I'll be taking you through some of my favorite color combinations and how you can bring it to life very spontaneously, as well as refining it through building shadows, glazes, and transparent layers. As always, we work light to dark, big to small, wet into wet to dry. And you can take advantage of the kit that I have made available to you. Make sure that you download that, and you can print out the image or just keep it on your desktop. I want your plein air experience to be rich and fulfilling, and it certainly can be when you let go a little bit, explore color, and just enjoy nature. You can apply this method to any floral painting, really. So take your watercolor outside and try to enjoy it a little bit more this summer. Not too concerned with the shape of the flower at the moment. I just want to show you the color combinations. So we can just poke our brush into the Dioxazine Violet here, and I'm just going to put a little bit out into my palette. It's a really powerful color, so I don't want it to be too saturated. We will most likely be working on dry, and for this I'm just going to add a few little strokes around the ruffled part of the flower. And into that, while it's still wet, I'm going to take a bit of permanent rose. If you've got a test strip, you can test it on the test strip. I'm going to add that to the warmer core of the flower. And then finally, I'm going to go into that Gamboge, which is sort of that cadmium yellow, and I'm going to add that. You see, I'm working on dry, but as I add each consecutive color, they bleed into the previous. Now you could leave it like that, or you can blot with clean tissue to lighten some of the edges to get that feeling of and the range of value shifts from light to dark. And we can even keep going. I could move back into the violet and just sketching with my brush, maybe start working on some of the furls, that ruffled edge. Add a little bit of color. So you see, we're mixing the color right on the surface of the paper, and I'm working on dry paper, but sometimes just connecting and dragging the colors together. And I can control the amount of pigment on my brush by either dipping it directly in the well or diluting it in the palette here or in our mixing tray. Definitely a big bonus if you use a test strip, but I'm just quickly showing you how versatile you can be and how quickly you can establish these shapes and values. Now, if I want to just finish this iris off, I could go into the raw sienna and add just a little bit of, not an outline per se, but just some definition to the edges to finish and refine those edges. The pinks and the purples and the raw sienna really give a nice peachiness to the that paler head. You can run a wet brush through to diffuse some of the paint And I'm just using the tip of the brush. I can add some of that raw sienna to the underside of those petals. And then now I'm just using this idea of linked shapes. So I paint a shape and then I connect it to the next shape and so on. I keep moving like that. That was Sap Green. And interestingly enough, the Sap Green and then the violet kind of creates a brownish look, which normally isn't too desirable, but in this case it works out perfectly. And you just use that to create that casing and that bud enclosure for the flower. And then we move into a cooler green combination for the stem, which is the Hooker's Green Dark, and a little bit of that Ultramarine Blue. Once again, you can use the tissue to lighten, to control your values, or to give you a halo kind of effect. So once again, the colors for the flower were violet, a little bit of permanent rose. I did use some of that gamboge. And some raw sienna. You may even feel that you see some burnt sienna or permanent red in the lines of the little skin as well, so that's an option. Option to use that burnt sienna or permanent red. Typically, I'm not painting this large a scale. My plein air paintings are much smaller, or I have multiple flowers. So the bigger the flower, the more it warrants detail. But in this case, I think that that's probably sufficient. I'm painting it very large for you just as a demonstration. But again, as we move on to our final plein air painting, we're dealing with much smaller scale flowers.
Be sure to check out the links that will take you to this full 1 hour and 45-minute video tutorial available on my website.